All right, it's September 17, 1904 in Abilene, Texas at the 12th Armored Museum, and my name is Larry Bradshaw. I'm interviewing Stephen Tratnik, who is attending the annual convention of the 12th Armored, and we're doing an oral history interview here so that future generations can do research about what you fellows did. Tell me a little bit about when you were born and where, what your life was like as a young man.
Oh, I was born in Ely, Minnesota. Population about 6,000 people at that time. And I went through grade school, high school there. And it was a small mining community. No jobs available.
What did your parents do?
My dad was a miner. My mother was a housewife.
What was life like for you? Were your parents poor or middle class, or?
They were middle class, and the community area was real nice.
Mm-hmm. It's a kind of a rural area?
Yes, more or less.
Uh-huh.
Out in the woods.
Now, when were you born?
November 13, 1921.
1921, so you were about 20 years old when December 7th happened.
Right.
Do you remember where you were on December 7th?
I was at Dunwoody High School, Dunwoody College in Minneapolis.
And how did you hear about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
That was, I was in school at that time.
Mm-hmm. And the word just sort of spread?
Yeah.
Did you know at that time that you would probably be headed to the military then?
No, I didn't, except when I was taking up machine shop, and the government said that they needed older people to go to school and learn how to machine. So they told all us younger people that we had to leave, and because the older people, they needed them for defense work.
Mm-hmm.
For training. So then I went to work for 9 months before I went in service after that.
Mm-hmm. Now, where did you actually, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted. I tried to join the Navy, and they took my eye exam, and that was it, period. At that time, I was nearsighted. I had eyeglasses.
And where did you actually report for your first?
Fort Snelling,
and that's
Minneapolis.
In Minneapolis. And how long were you there?
2 weeks.
And then they sent you where?
They sent me to Camp Campbell, Kentucky.
And you were getting infantry training, or exactly what?
Well, I went right into the artillery division, 493rd. And I stayed there.
Now, you rode on the train. Is that the way you got around in those days?
Yeah, we had, that was train or bus.
Uh-huh.
That was only, people were too poor to own cars then.
Right. Well, how did you feel about going into the Army?
Well, it was a thing that you should do because of the way the country was, and being attacked from Japan and all that. And it was a popular thing, I think, at that time, to be drafted into the service.
Patriotic.
Yeah.
How long did you spend at Fort Campbell?
A little better than a year. Then I went to down Texas here.
Okay, do you remember the first time you saw Abilene and Camp Barkley? What were your impressions?
I thought it stunk.
Different from Minnesota.
Much different.
What was
yes,
it?
It was, well, you got a lot more open spaces. Like up in Minnesota, we had always, where I lived was trees and forests and lakes. And down there, it wasn't that way. That wasn't the way. It was just the buildings and stuff that I thought was the worst part.
Yeah. Now, do you remember this train station right back here behind us? Is that where you came in?
Oh, I wouldn't know that.
Yeah,
This is built up pretty good since then.
yeah. Now, how did they get you from the train station down to the camp?
And truck.
In a truck.
Right.
And what time of year did you come into Abilene?
I think it was towards fall. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. And was it cold or hot or?
Oh, it's always hot here.
And tell me a little bit about your accommodations down there at Camp Barkley. What were they like?
Oh, they were just, I think, a normal barracks, a temporary type of barracks, where you had a whole bunch of people sleeping in, and it wasn't anything permanent.
Right.
We knew that. Same as Camp Campbell.
Right. Now, you know, I stayed in one of those barracks when they moved it out here to the university when I was in school here 40 years ago. So I might have stayed in the same barrack you lived in.
That's a possibility.
Now, tell me about the kind of training and the emphasis that you had while you were at Camp Barkley.
Well, mostly was how to handle equipment, follow orders, and be getting. I still say I was brainwashed.
Yeah.
Which I think I was, because there's no way that I would fall on a grenade when in a group of people and instead of running away.
Right.
So I think I would be. I think they did a good job of brainwashing people.
Now, I've heard soldiers there say there were psychologists there that sort of messed with your mind. And do you remember any of that?
No, I didn't have. I don't think we had any of that there.
I think these were for the kind of helping soldiers who were coming back from the war,
Yeah.
helping them to adjust to normal life. What were did you have any close friends when you were here at Camp Barkley?
Oh yes. Yeah.
You remember any of their names?
Oh yeah, Bertelson, he's here. Patsy Water, Frank Ziner, quite a few other ones. We were all pretty close.
Was everybody white at that time, or were there mixed races?
Mostly white, almost all white.
Almost all white?
Yeah, yeah.
And these fellows were from all over the United States?
Right.
So that was pretty interesting, meeting people from different different parts of the country.
Yes, it was, because we learned a little bit about what our country was from so many people, which
Exactly.
I'd never seen before.
Right, right. Now, how long were you at Camp Barkley?
I think it was just a little better than a year.
Okay. And you knew you were eventually probably going to go to Europe then?
Well, yeah, we were pretty sure Europe, because of the armored forces were over Pacific. You didn't have the type of armored.
Right. Even though there were some men at Camp Barkley that went to the Pacific.
Right.
Yeah.
But they weren't in, they were infantry and stuff like that,
Right.
or reconnaissance.
Right. What did you do for fun when you were at Camp Barkley, when you were off duty and so forth?
Oh, went to the canteen, played poker, played some volleyball and some other baseball, different stuff like that, and just shot the bull mostly.
Did you get a chance to meet any girls?
Not really. That wasn't my bag of tea at that time.
They have some pictures out here in the museum of parties and so forth around town where the soldiers and the girls would go to a dance and that sort of thing.
I went to a couple, but I was not much of a dancer.
Yeah.
I had 2 left feet.
Okay. Do you remember any of your commanding officers out there at Camp Barkley?
Yeah.
What were their names?
One was Lieutenant Gerling, Captain Muser. I can't think of the other ones right offhand.
Okay. So, where did you go then after you left Camp Barkley?
We went to New York whatever it is, to get the heck out of this country.
Right.
To go overseas.
Right. And you went on the train.
Right.
Were you afraid? Was there any sense of dread about going into that mess over there?
Not too much. I think it was just more or less confusion and a little bit of anxiety, but I think it was more like anticipation of what was going to happen.
Mhm.
I don't think it was any fear.
Mhm. Did the soldiers talk with each other about their feelings, how they felt? Did you?
Oh, not too much.
Not too much of that?
I don't think anybody wanted to say, "Oh, I'm afraid to go over there," or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, did you keep up with the news about the war? Did you read the papers and so
Oh,
forth?
Yes. Yes. We
See
did.
how everything was going?
Oh, yeah.
So-
Listening to radio and stuff.
So you headed over there in 43?
Yeah.
Okay. We were in pretty good shape by 1943 in the Pacific,
Right.
but not so good in the European theater. Still a lot of work to do
Yeah.
then. So you went on a ship then from New York to where?
England. I forget the name of the harbor, but we went to England first, and we stayed there for about a month and a half, 2 months.
And then how did you get onto the continent?
Well, we took one of these little LSTs, and we went across on that. That was then. That was kind of an experience.
How so?
Well, it was crowded,
Mhm.
and then when the sailors we were delayed. Instead of getting off on a Saturday, they said we couldn't get off till Sunday, and they were mad because they had to eat stew like we did. I'll never forget that.
Tell me a little bit about the food in the Army. What was that like?
Depends on who the cook was.
How about at Camp Barkley? Was the food good?
We had our cook was strictly by the book.
Uh-huh.
You had stew on Monday, hash on Wednesday, and just everything every time was the same thing.
Uh-huh.
And when he went on furlough, we were ate like kings. Assistant cook did the cooking.
Uh-huh.
He didn't care about breaking the rules.
Yeah. Now, you landed then in France, or how
Yes,
did-
France. Yeah.
Okay. And you started into France. Tell me a little bit about your job. Tell us a little bit about what your exact job was there as you went into France.
Well, besides being an assistant exec's half-track, I had my duties were to, if anybody had any problem with a gun, whether it was the artillery piece or a small arms gun, I was always there to repair them. And then we were everybody had to go on guard duty.
Did you have plenty of equipment, or were you running short, or how was that?
Oh, we had plenty of equipment most of the time because armored forces were pretty well equipped.
And then as you got further in, you'd have supply lines bringing what you needed and that sort of thing.
Right.
What time of year were you first on the continent there?
Maybe in, I'm gonna guess because it was winter time up there, that'd be early fall here.
And is that 44, 1944?
Yeah, 44. Yeah.
And that was kind of the peak of the war about
Right.
that time.
Right.
That was before the Battle of the Bulge and
No,
all
it
that.
was after the Battle of Bulge.
Oh, that was after.
That was after.
Okay.
Like about 80 days or something like that.
Okay, so that was in the middle of the winter then.
Right.
Tell me
it was
about
wet, cold.
How'd you, now you're from Minnesota because you're used to that. How did you deal with the winter over there?
Well, it was different because it was wet and cold. And you just had to put more clothes on and sweaters and stuff like that, and that's the only way you could keep warm over there. Because you're outside all the time.
You rode in on a truck then, or how did you, or ride on a
Half-track.
tank? Half-track? And that would go through anything.
Almost anything.
Yeah. But it was a lot of mud and
Yeah.
snow and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of contact did you have with the civilian population on your way you were going into Germany.
Yeah. Well, the French people were really happy to see us come in, and they try to help us out, whatever. And we always try to see if they needed some food or something, and so it kind of worked both ways.
Have you been back to Europe since the war?
Never wanted to. Never.
Is that right?
Yet.
Never wanted to go back.
Nope.
Were you ever in the middle of a lot of firefights?
Yeah, we were a couple times. Yeah.
What was that like?
It was scary. And
Was
just hope that nobody got hit or something.
was that artillery coming in?
Artillery, and then there was a couple of times small arms.
Uh-huh. Now, did you work in a tent, or how did you actually do your repair work?
Out in the field. No tents. We had to have track. That's it.
Did you work at night?
It depends on what went wrong.
Uh-huh.
Either way. And if you're moving or not.
Now, was there a lot of time just sitting and waiting, or did you pretty much move at a steady pace?
It was one of them deals where you hurry up and wait.
Okay.
There was a lot of waiting, an awful lot of waiting.
Now, were the same bunch of buddies that you mentioned a while ago with you then, or did you have different friends when you were in France?
Most of us came out together and went in together and came out together. Most of them.
Uh-huh.
There was a few that got hurt.
Did you lose any good friends over there?
Yeah, I lost a couple of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, they didn't get killed, but they were wounded.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What was the worst memory you have of the war? Most discouraging or whatever?
Well, I guess when the war was over in Europe, they got me in a boxcar, and they shuttled us up, back and forth in the night only. 3 miles one way, 3 miles back that way for 3 days. And then somebody threw us out of Stars and Stripes, and they were going in another boxcar. And they said that the war over in Japan was over. I was on my way to Le Havre at that time to come back to the United States. And I ended up back in the same spot I left after 3 days.
Why were they moving you around like that?
Oh, we were going to get transferred back to the United States, and then get rehabbed and retrained, and to go over to Europe.
Ugh.
And I think there was like about a 90-day period that they would have done that in, but I never made it to Le Havre.
Was it pretty clear in your mind that we were winning the war when you got to France, that it wasn't going to be anything other than a matter of time?
Oh, no, not at that time.
No.
Later on, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But it was pretty bleak when you first got
Yeah.
there. What were some of the weapons that you were expert in repairing and working on?
Well, we had the 105 howitzers, and that's what we had in our outfit. Then we had carbine, which that's about all we had. So that was the only things we had.
You didn't have the...
Or we had 50 caliber machine guns and 30 caliber machine guns, but never had any problem with them.
The artillery didn't have the M3s then?
Not ours, no.
The grease gun?
Oh, the grease gun, yeah. Well, no, we didn't usually have too much of that.
Uh-huh. What were some of the problems that you had with the weapons that you would have to fix?
Mostly was mechanical, like maybe bogey wheel on a 50 caliber machine guns, or jammed up guns or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And the artillery pieces very seldom had any problem at all.
Uh-huh. How about the handguns? Every soldier carried a sidearm, right?
No, we didn't.
Oh, they didn't?
No, just a rifle. Just the officers carried a handgun.
Oh, okay. And that was the...
That was their tradition today.
That'd be the Browning and the 45 caliber?
45 caliber, most of them.
And did you work on those also?
They never fired them, so I didn't have to.
That's good. That's good. Now, did you always have plenty of ammunition, or was that?
Yes. No, no, we were short a couple of times with artillery ammunition.
Uh-huh.
And they had a force march to go get back and get some ammunition.
Uh-huh.
There was a few times on that.
Now, where did you, when the war ended, where were you? The war in Europe.
I can't remember where the heck it was.
Were you headed to Berlin, or?
While we were on the other side of the Rhine River,
Uh-huh.
beyond there,
Uh-huh.
and that's about where we were.
And how did the fellows respond when they heard that Hitler was dead? And
Oh, we were really happy. We felt we time to go home.
yeah,
You know, everybody was happy about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you felt like you were going to be headed to the other theater.
Well, that's what they told us. But we were more concerned about the Russians than we were about the Germans.
Oh, is that right?
Right at the time they surrendered because of the politics involved with
Yes.
that. Yeah, made everybody going in together.
Yes.
I think this was a little more concerned after they surrendered.
Yeah. So they kept you over there for 3 months after the war ended, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yep.
And then you opened to Stars and Stripes and discovered that we've dropped the bomb on Hiroshima,
Yeah,
and the war was over.
right.
And how'd you feel then?
Oh, it felt real good. That's when I said I was in the boxcars. That's when we felt real good, but we thought we were going to go ahead for La Havre, but we ended up back where we originally started.
And then you went back to England then?
No, we was in France then. Then went to La Havre, and
Uh-huh.
went back home.
To New York?
Yeah.
Okay. What was that like coming back on the ship? Was there just a giddy kind of a feeling? The whole thing was done?
No. It was in February where the water was the roughest. 2 ships before us turned back. Our ship was a Liberty ship, and I was down in the bottom hold. I was sick for 9 days out of 11. And the 10th and 11th day, you couldn't fill me up. I went downstairs and I swiped all the windows I could from the refrigerator. But I was sick.
Did you lose a bunch of weight?
I stayed about the same. At that time, I was about 145 pounds.
Can you remember the day you sailed into New York Harbor? What was that like?
When you saw the Statue of Liberty, that was one of the greatest things I ever felt. It was really nice. So we all rushed up there and saluted. Nobody asked us to.
Uh-huh. And then how did you get from New York then back to Minneapolis?
Trained.
On the train. Did you just go right away, or was it a few days?
Oh, no, it was a few days. And then went to Wisconsin. And then they got discharged from in Wisconsin. Then took the train back here.
So when were you discharged? What month of the year?
Trying to think. It was in February of 45.
February of 45.
Yeah.
Are you sure about that date? Because
Pretty close.
because it was August of 45 when the Japanese
okay.
surrendered. So it must have been 46.
Yeah.
February 46. So you were 25 years old by then.
Right about that.
Yeah. And then you went back to school
Yeah.
and to be an electronics technician.
Electronic technician. I was on TV mostly.
Oh, so you were there on the early days of television.
Yeah. And it passed you by in a hurry.
And you were in Chicago?
2 years.
School in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then where did you move after that?
Went back to Minneapolis and started working on TV. Then I went in went to Northern Ordnance, a defense plant in Minneapolis, and I became a technician on these electronic on tape machines. Uh, that's where I ended up retired from there.
And that was like audio recording and...
No, this was where you told the machine to do this and that, and it did it.
Oh,
All
okay.
by itself.
Okay. Voice actuated?
No, it was, at that time it was, they had a paper tape that they put in the machine
Right.
with holes in it, and
Right.
it told the machine that how deep to go, how far around you go, and stuff like that.
So kind of early computer
Yeah.
type thing. Now, did you get married?
Oh yeah.
When were you married?
May 20th, 1950.
1950. So you were 30 years old almost
Yeah.
before you got married.
I still held out for a long time.
And what was your wife's name?
Anastasia, Ann.
And you met her in Chicago or Minneapolis?
Minneapolis.
In Minneapolis. And did you have children?
Yeah, we had 4 girls, 1 boy. The boy died July 16th, 2004.
Just recently?
Yep.
And then how about your girls?
They're still alive and kicking and married, kids.
You have grandchildren?
Yes, great-grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Very good. How do you think the war changed you? Do you feel like you were a different person in 46 than you were in 41?
Oh, definitely.
How so?
Well, I think I just brought in my experience a lot and didn't want to stay in a certain spot for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it just brought in my experiences out
Mm-hmm.
and my thinking.
Mm-hmm. And you've had lifelong friendships that came from your friends that you met there during the service.
Oh, yeah.
And you go to the 12th Armored Convention about every year, or
Just about.
just about.
Yeah.
And what do you think of the museum?
Oh, I think it's wonderful from the first time I saw it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now, you were here in 2001
Right.
when they dedicated the
Right.
museum. And that was a fun day when we had the parade. And,
Right.
a beautiful fall day, I remember that. Is there anything any story or piece of humor or thing that I haven't asked about that you'd like to put on tape?
Well, the only thing I would like to say is that these smaller reunions, which was like we have in the North Central, I met so many people that I didn't know when I was in the service and their wives, and we became fast friends. And we had a nice, beautiful time. And even when I come to the Nationals, now I got more people I can talk to. My horizons have changed on that part, and it makes it much more pleasurable.
Mm-hmm. Now you are, how old are you now?
82, be 83 November.
83. Do you feel like the country honors sufficiently the greatest generation, as you've been called? Do you feel like your sacrifices were appreciated and so forth?
I would say more so than the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Much more.
Yeah.
But with the promises the government said to all the people who were in services were not kept.
Yeah.
Like your hospitalization, medical, stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, have you seen the World War II Memorial in Washington?
No, I haven't. That's about 40 years too late for that, or 50.
It took a long time, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
It really did. Well, Stephen, we appreciate your giving us the interview, and we appreciate your service to the country.
Okie doke.
All right.